Welcome to Toronto.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations on yet another iteration of the Ralph franchise. Just wondering if you could talk about revisiting this world and breaking the internet.
So, it's interesting. When you talk about doing a sequel, there's the challenge of how do you make that story be as original and as creative as the first story you created. And so for a long time, we didn't even explore the idea of making a second Ralph story. And then the idea of the internet came in as a part of the conversation. We said, well, what if Mr. Litwack, the arcade owner, actually plugged a modem into Game Central Station and our characters could go to this big expansive world, and that got us really excited about what you could do. But there is still that challenge of how do you make the story be as good, as funny, and as emotional as that first one.
And how do you make it timeless? I guess one way is sort of by tying into some of the pop culture elements that you have as part of the Disney universe. I'm just wondering if you could talk about that, those elements that you've drawn in.
I think that is it's a great question, one of the hardest parts of this story, because the internet is something that's constantly changing. So if you're trying to chase that, you'll be out of date 3 weeks after the movie comes out. So for us, we focused on the story itself. You could tell this story, two best friends who are from a small town go to the big city, one falls in love with it and one decides they just want to go back to the original hometown. You can tell that in a lot of different worlds. We're setting it in the world of the internet. It makes sense to do that piece because our characters are digital characters. If you focus on that and don't allow yourselves to get too attracted to all those other interesting elements, then the story itself will allow the film not to feel dated. Yet, we still have to make nods to those things that we all appreciate about the internet itself. So I think it has that nice blend of both.
Could you talk about those things that you draw upon? I do know that there's a lot of pop culture references and specifically Disney universe references.
One of the ideas that was pitched early on in the story room itself was, what if Ralph and Vanellope went to a website called Oh My Disney? And what if in that website all the Disney princesses were there? And Vanellope, being a princess from the first film, she gets to meet other princesses from the Disney canon. And it at first just seemed like a great place for comedy. But then as the story evolved, we realized, no, this actually could be a great moment for the princesses to talk to Vanellope about this idea of destiny. And have you found yours yet? And that's really what opens her world to the exploration of what could the internet be for her.
I know you guys are really strong about story, but one way you could see that is slightly cynically, that this is a way of simply merchandising the characters.
Yeah.
How do you avoid doing that? How do you ensure that you have the sort of purity of storytelling to not let the baggage of what it means to be a Disney film overtake the narrative?
I think that's the key. You have to say to yourself, how does it organically fit into the story? It can't start with, oh, what can we do to market something? Because that will always feel tacked on. And so even when the idea was pitched originally, there was a sense of this could fit story-wise, like it would make sense, and yet we get the comedy of the world. That's what I love about the first film too, which is we have all of these video game characters from other companies as part of that world, but we figured out how to make that feel organic as opposed to, and then there's this character, and there's this character, and there's this character. It's really like, how do they weave into the story in a way that makes you not think about that aspect of it?
Excellent. We'll continue to get them bigger and continue to enjoy.
Great.
Thank
you
you
so much. Yeah. Nice to meet you.
What a pleasure.
Thank you.